They say in America, you're free to love who you want. But freedom is just a word when your own family becomes your prison. Now, as the night's shadows creep across my bedroom walls, I'm sitting on the edge of my bed with my hands wrapped tightly around a phone that won't light up for me anymore. Each distant siren that wails through the quiet street outside brings back the memory of that night. I should be sleeping, but sleep fled the moment he was taken away. My home has turned into a cage, each locked door a reminder that I am now trapped by the ones who promised to protect me. My parents always said they only wanted what was best for me, but what kind of best ends in a courtroom? The love of my life is behind bars, and I'm left alone with my fear and sorrow. When I close my eyes, I still see him reaching for me, his eyes wide with confusion as he was dragged away. The pain that rips through me is a kind I never understood until now. At 17, I'm watching the life I knew slip through my fingers, and it feels like drowning under dry land. They call it protection. They call it law. But I call it betrayal. I trusted them, trusted my mother and father to help me navigate this crazy world. Instead, they turned our home into a police station of empty apologies and rumors. I can't tell if I'm shaking from the cold or from the rage boiling inside. Every memory of him sends a jolt through my chest, and I wake up gasping for breath, hoping this nightmare will end. How do I go on, knowing that the person who held my heart can't even hold my hand right now? I remember the first time I saw him. It was a warm summer afternoon when he walked into the small coffee shop where I worked part-time. He had a t-shirt with a silly cartoon on it and a careless grin that made my heart stop. I spilled my latte all over myself when our eyes met. Classic me, always clumsy around the cute guy. But he just laughed, offering me a napkin, and that tiny act of kindness felt like the beginning of something beautiful. We started talking more after that accidental encounter. I learned he was in college, about 3 years older than me, but somehow we clicked like old friends. Over cold soft drinks on the swing set behind the park, we traded secrets about our lives. He said he liked how honest I was about loving sci-fi books. I said I was glad he pretended I could think he was cool for real. Every conversation ended with butterflies in my stomach. Maybe he felt them too. Before long, it was easier to pretend we were just friends when I was actually falling in love. I'd lie to my parents about where I was going, saying I was studying with classmates while really I was strolling down to the river to watch the sunset with him. We'd talk about our dreams under the open sky, him talking about art school, me talking about moving to a city far away. In those moments, his hand in mine felt as natural as breathing. He had this way of looking at me that made me think the world was made just for us. One night, as fireflies danced around us in the summer dusk, he pulled me close and whispered, "You make me feel alive." I believed him. In that golden evening light, with the smell of grass and the distant sound of music from a nearby fair, it felt like the whole world had fallen silent for us. I didn't know back then that this would be one of our happiest memories, a night I would replay over and over in my head when everything fell apart. The night air felt heavy as I crawled into bed next to the man I loved. He took my hand and whispered something about tomorrow, but I didn't hear him. My mother burst through the door like a storm, her eyes red and her face pale. My heart fell as I saw her and then him in my room. It was already too late for us to be private. "What is going on here?" she demanded, voice shaking. Before I could answer, my father pounded on the door and they both barged in together. I tried to stand up to them, but my legs trembled. I remember clinging to him, whispering, "Please stay calm, it's okay." But they were already pointing and shouting. My dad snatched my phone and saw the screenshots of our messages, sweet goodnight texts I'd sent him the night before. "This is illegal," he said coldly. "You're underage, and he's taking advantage of you." My voice caught in my throat as I defended him with every ounce of courage I had. "He's not taking advantage of me. I love him," I cried. My mom looked at me with tears in her eyes, furious and frightened, as if she didn't recognize her own daughter. I tried to explain how he treated me, how safe and happy he made me feel, but it felt like I was talking to a wall. My father's hands shook as he picked up the old landline phone. "I'm sorry, honey, but this is the only way," he murmured more to himself than to me. The next thing I heard was sirens, a sound that will haunt me forever. I ran to the front door, but not fast enough. The policemen were already in the hallway. One officer asked calmly if everything was okay, but I could barely form words. I was shoved aside and saw him, my boyfriend, standing in confusion and disbelief. It happened so quickly. I felt him squeeze my hand, his eyes filled with fear and anger. His lips moved but I couldn't hear what he was saying over the chaos. Then I saw the cuffs click around his wrists, and my world imploded into silence. I was outside in the dark, watching as he was led down the steps. I screamed, "Please, please don't." My knees buckled and I covered my face, sobbing as the front door closed on my life just like that. The morning after felt like waking up in a different world. The bed was empty beside me, dawn seeped through the curtains and found only one of us. My phone had 2 missed calls from him, and when I checked the voicemail there was only silence. I choked back a sob and lay there pretending I was still asleep, wishing none of it had happened. My parents were silent at breakfast. My mother avoided looking at me, and my father's once warm eyes were stone cold as he handed me toast. He mumbled something about needing to be more careful, as if I had done something wrong. I wanted to shout at them, to cry that I was the one hurting too, but nothing came out. I felt as if the person I knew best had vanished from the room with him. In the days that followed, I became a ghost at home and at school. At home, the sweet girl my dad used to come tuck me in at night couldn't sleep. I stayed up staring at the ceiling, replaying every word I ever said to him. At school, rumors started swirling. Some kids asked if I was grounded, others just stared. I kept to myself in the cafeteria. Each day was a mix of guilt and fear, guilt that maybe I had led him on, fear that I'd never feel safe again. I had to visit the police station a few times. Officers asked me questions like I was a stranger instead of a scared teen. They showed me transcripts of my texts and asked, "Are you sure he didn't force you?" I shook my head emphatically. "No, never." But they wrote down my answers as evidence against him, as if every message from me was proof of some crime. My hands still smell like the sanitizer the officers used to clean the chair. In their eyes I was suddenly the one on trial. When I came home, my parents used words I never expected. "You should have known better." I felt like I had no one left but the empty walls. The house was quiet now, too quiet except for the echoes of that night. I would sometimes find him in my dreams, or sitting alone on the riverbank where we used to talk. Waking up from those dreams was like being thrown back into reality, only now it was numb and cold. I tried to pick up my life. I went back to cheerleading practice, and slowly the act of doing something normal reminded me who I used to be. Every cheer my team did reminded me of how I used to feel free. But as soon as practice ended, the ache returned. Some nights, I pretended to focus on the future, going to college, seeing new places. Other nights, my guilt told me I didn't deserve any of that happiness. Yet even in the darkest days, a tiny part of me refused to completely give up. I started writing again, filling page after page in my journals angry rants at the unfairness of it all, prayers for strength, letters to him I knew I'd never send. Slowly, those pages became a mirror. I saw how terrified I was, and also how strong. Every word I wrote to keep him alive in my mind showed me I could keep myself alive, too. It hurts to smile sometimes. I still catch myself reaching for the phone to text him when something good happens. But with each sunrise, I force myself to breathe a little easier. A part of me is still shattered, but I'm learning to glue it back together piece by piece, and maybe, just maybe, one day I'll wake up and find that these nightmares have turned into a new dream I can live. Several months have passed, and in some ways I barely recognize who I've become. My mornings aren't spent crying at the ceiling anymore, instead I run through the quiet streets as the sun rises, chasing my own peace. The small cracks in my bedroom wall let in sunlight now, and I've painted a star in that corner just to remind me that he's out there, somewhere under the same sky. Each new day feels a little bit lighter than the last. I found myself again in tiny ways. A new friend at school, Jessie, sits with me during lunch and listens when I ramble about the sky and far-off cities. She doesn't judge me, just laughs at my terrible jokes and reminds me that I'm still worth something. My parents, slowly, have begun to trust me again too. My father gave me the car keys the other day and said, "Drive somewhere you love." It felt like a gift of freedom after so long hiding inside these walls. Some nights I still replay our shared moments, but now I smile at them rather than break apart. I have a box of mementos, old tickets, a pressed flower from that night by the river, and I revisit them sometimes just to breathe his memory in. One time, I held his old jacket, smelled the fabric, and felt both warmth and sadness. In that moment, I whispered to the empty room, "Thank you for loving me," and then put it away with a gentle goodbye. It didn't erase the past, but it made it softer. Friends have come back into my life like sunlight after a storm. We plan movie nights and joke about stupid things until it feels silly that I ever fell apart. I got back on the cheer squad, skidded across the floor, and remembered how fierce I can be. My grades even started to climb again, because I found purpose in learning rather than longing. Each small victory, acing a test, finishing a book, making my parents proud, became a reminder that my life is still mine to live. Of course, he's still there in the quiet of my mind. Sometimes during spring when the cherry blossoms bloom, I'll admit I imagine telling him all the things I wish he could know, how I'm okay, and that I loved him harder than anyone, but that I can also love myself again. I'm no hero, I was just a scared girl who loved a boy. But loving him showed me what it means to feel alive. Tonight, I finally feel a strange kind of peace, one foot in my memories, one foot in tomorrow. They say in America you're free to love who you want. I still believe that, even if they can't understand. My love story has an asterisk now, but this chapter of my life ends with hope. I've learned that even after the longest night, dawn always comes. The future is unwritten, but now I face it with an open heart. And maybe one day, when I'm truly free, I'll find someone who holds me as gently as he did, someone my family trusts, someone who loves me without fearing the sunrise. For now, I'm alive, I'm learning to smile again, and I'm writing my own story chapter by chapter.